Hey guys, just having some milk and cookies in my safe space, so time to get back to work. Let's see what we've got today. All right, my apologies for not being able to post for a while, and especially for you guys over on my paid channel, we will discuss briefly, but I actually have been going through some challenges at work. Those of you guys who work in corporate industries are probably kind of well familiar, but any major corporation in the last, say, 6 to 8 months or so has almost invariably been undergoing some structure changes and things, or as we call it, reorganizations. I have managed to survive mine, but unfortunately a lot of people that I know did not, and kind of adapting to some changes going around, I had to prioritize and really have had to essentially call off most of the car stuff. But we'll get back into it now that things are a little bit settled out. But that's why I've been gone for a while, and my condolences and sympathies to those of you in other corporate environments that have been going through similar, but I know that this is kind of a thing that's been going on, but things are going to get better, I promise. All right, what we've got here is a 2010 Chrysler, I think it's a Town and Country, right? Wouldn't that be the minivan? Let's take a look here. Yeah, not too shabby at all, but also this minivan is kind of nice too. And the story here is they were driving on a road trip from here in Colorado out to, I believe it was Las Vegas, Nevada recently. And of course, during the road trip, they developed a engine problem where the engine started to run kind of bad. They lost power. The car was in the middle of nowhere at the time, so they struggled to get it into the nearest shop. It was just some kind of roadside shop where they replaced the oxygen sensor to try to fix it. Actually, we've got some notes here. Okay, so we wrote out a little diary here. We'll see if we can read along here. Okay, so the van been running good. Check engine light came on during road trip, yes, to Las Vegas. So the first shop that they went to, they replaced the O2 sensor. Unfortunately, I don't seem to have any documentation from the shop. That might have been helpful to see what the code was or whatever. After replacing the O2 sensor, the issue became worse. They drove to another shop because I don't believe that they realized that it was worse at the time. I know they went to another shop at some point here. I'm going to assume it's here. And the other shop, I believe, replaced the O2 sensor with a factory one. No, not a factory one, a more expensive O2 sensor from AutoZone. I believe this is the same shop that they're at still. When they replaced the O2 sensor and it still has the rough idle, they replaced the spark plugs. After a few miles, light came on and the engine wouldn't idle by itself. So that's interesting. Spark plugs looked bad, replaced the valve cover gasket. Huh, okay. Wow. All right, I'm not sure what to say about that. Maybe spark plugs looked bad, but they were just replaced, I'm guessing. It's a little hard to follow here. Maybe there was oil on the spark plugs and maybe the valve cover gasket was replaced because the seal for the spark plug tubes maybe was leaking oil on the spark plugs. That would certainly cause some misfire problems and things. Probably not a failed O2 sensor code. And he's asking, does it need a factory O2 sensor? Maybe some other sensors, module, maybe coils. So we are kind of running down a rabbit hole right here, so we want to stop that. Not a lot useful from the history here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a peek in the glove box and just see if I can find any paperwork from the shop or shops that looked at this. Haha, all right, so we do have where it looks like we've got I just saw it here. Okay, the original code was a P0152, circuit high voltage bank 2 sensor 1. All right, so that was the original code. I guess the shop is a little bit absolved in replacing the O2 sensor, which I guess there is some indication of faulty O2 sensor. I'm not sure how they determined the O2 sensor was the fault for a high voltage. Obviously, open circuit could do that as well. So I think what we're going to do is, I'm guessing, I don't know if there's going to be a plethora of check engine lights, if they didn't necessarily clear the check engine lights or whatever during all this, because the car never ran good again, so they may not have even cleared codes. Not sure what we're going to find, but that's where we need to start. And we'll kind of have to take with a grain of salt what we find because it may be lit up with a bunch of stuff that isn't relevant anymore. Let's see. All right, we are going to go a little old school here and use our old friend Auto Ingenuity. It's been a while since I've used that. And I also forgot, I would be remiss, I made a promise and definitely have to follow through with this. As a result of some of the changes that I've experienced in the company and the reorganization, I no longer will be traveling to California, and I had to say goodbye to my really good friends at the Hilton Garden Inn that I stay at all the time in Sacramento. And I promised I would especially say goodbye to my friends Jose and Carlito. They work in the kitchen there at the Hilton Garden Inn restaurant. They're viewers, and I will miss you guys tremendously, but I promised I would mention them on the channel at their request. So thank you guys for the years that you've taken care of me while I was there. All right, let's see here. We need to go to Chrysler here. Pretty sure this is a 2010 Town and Country, and nope, it's not because it didn't connect up. Okay, let me do some research here. All right, now it is a 2010, so there it is. I'm not sure what happened there. Again, one of the reasons maybe that I don't use Auto Ingenuity so much. There are definitely, as opposed to my newer scan tools, some connectivity issues, as you guys are well familiar if you watch the channel for a while. All right, let's just pull up all the codes here. All right, and accidentally by default, I went into enhanced mode here. What I really should have done is gone into generic mode. The reason being because we're expecting some O2 sensor issues, and typically your O2 sensor data, you'll actually find more of it in a generic mode than a enhanced parameter mode, but we'll see what we get here. All right, it's just checking through all the modules here, checking each module for codes and communication issues and stuff. So while that runs, you may be wondering how the car came to me. The guy actually has had the van to me before. When he had an ABS issue, it turned out to just be a wheel speed sensor. And he actually called me while he was out on the road after this ordeal with the shops because he had nowhere else to go. And I kind of had some reservations about him driving it all the way back with the check engine light. He was pretty bent on doing it because he didn't want to take it to another shop and have things get worse. So he brought it back to me, and he's pretty confident that we're going to be able to figure this out for him. So, and actually originally the guy got connected to me from the O'Reilly's that I go to all the time for parts and stuff. All right, this is almost done here. Let's see if we can get a look at the codes finally. All right, we got our results here. Let me zoom in to those a little bit so you can read them. Got a freeze frame on here too, which is nice. And let's see, we've got a P0151. So that's different, right? Because wasn't the first one 0152? No, actually, I take it back. I misread. So the shop had an 0151 and an 0152. I think I misspoke earlier. So we either have those come back here or they never cleared them from the first time. We don't know. We also have a new one. This is a 0175. I don't see that in any of the paperwork from the shop, so that looks new. Right now, the vehicle, I can tell you, it does idle rough. It certainly seems to have a misfire. We can look at our freeze frame here, and we can see at the time we're in closed loop at warmed up engine, 50% engine load at the time. We can see our bank 1 looking pretty good on fuel trims. Bank 2 not so good at all. Very rich on bank 2. So we can see the cause for our codes there. We've exceeded a 25% total fuel trim at some point there. We see our engine RPM looks really low. As I mentioned, this car has some idle problems. The owner says the engine did die on him, as a matter of fact, a couple times. Vehicle speed 0 miles an hour, so he's parked during this time. Be interesting to see what happens to the fuel trim under load. Let's see, nothing else here. Well, no, wait a minute. Throttle, well, I don't like that at all. Look at our throttle position. Vehicle speed 0 miles an hour with a throttle at 18%. Okay, there may be some clue there. We see our commanded throttle is at 5%, which would be much more reasonable in my opinion. 18% throttle, so I think the reason for that, I'm guessing, is kind of an idle air control thing. It's detecting this low RPM, and I believe it's trying to open the throttle. No, it isn't, because that's not commanded. That's not commanded. I was going to say it might be trying to open the throttle in order to bring the RPM up to a normal thing, but if that was the case, we would see this commanded. So maybe we got a throttle issue here, I'm not sure. Hard to imagine that causing a rich condition. All right, we see our downstream fuel system trim is lean, which is a little weird. And then that's all the engine codes we got. So we need to get this car started and get some live data here, but this is definitely not what I was expecting. Okay, I can absolutely hear a misfire in that car. It is not idling that great. So let's see what we want to pull up here. I think I would like to get an engine speed. Okay, I can tell you this car seems to have a miss. As a matter of fact, let's pull up these misfire counters here, see if it's detecting anything right now. Oh, there it is, cylinder number 2. We've got some misfires. Let's go to 3, 4. Oh, tagging them up on number 4 for sure. Number 5. So now I want to research the layout of this engine and see our cylinder numbering. Okay, and 6. Okay, so I'm going to guess that, what do you think? Do you think 2, 4, and 6 are on bank 2? I think so. I'll bet they are. We will definitely research that, but we are tagging up misfires on multiple cylinders on bank 2, I'm going to say. Turn these off. We know we've got a bank 2 issue here. So we're going to rule out, earlier I had mentioned maybe we've got a throttle problem or something. We do not, because first of all, it wouldn't make sense anyway, but second, throttle problem will affect the entire engine, not just one bank. So I'm not looking in that direction anymore. What I would like, I'm just curious where the throttle's at now. Whatever the throttle position is may just be unrelated and maybe it needs a throttle cleaning. Let's just see if we can pull that up here. Wow, the engine is running really bad. I know you can't hear that, but it just sounds like really bad. I wonder if that check engine light is flashing. Hang on. No, check engine light is not flashing, but there's moments where it sounds like the engine is just going to die. Like right there, you didn't hear that, but I don't think this engine's going to make it. I think it's going to cut out on us here. Okay, there's throttle blade position. Okay, and it's at a reasonable like 4%. Okay, and you can see, I know you can't hear it, but if you look at our RPMs here, how they jump around. And at some point, like there, the engine just died. The RPMs just drop and the engine dies. And right now the engine has stopped. Okay, so let's pull up the other data that we want. Obviously, we're going to want some O2 sensor data here. We can just do this while the key's on. And there's just a ton of data here that we don't need. There's bank 1, O2 sensor volts. Let's see, and this is a reason why you want to go into generic mode too, is we can bypass a lot of this chaff with all this data in enhanced parameters that we don't even need. It'd be so much easier to do this. And as a matter of fact, I think we're going to do that. I'm going to change directions here because this is going to take me an hour to find my data. So we are actually going to back out of this. I'm going to go to the generic powertrain, and it's going to be easier for us to pull our data. Okay, and while it does that, we're going to look up this engine layout and confirm that all those are bank 2. I'm sure they are, but we just want to be 100%. Ah, gosh, that's right. With Auto Ingenuity on, it uses my wireless, so I have to configure my computer for for the wireless from the AutoIngenuity module in the ALDL, and that means I can't use internet because it doesn't support internet, so we'll do that later. Another reason why AutoIngenuity, if it was Bluetooth, it would have been a little better, I think. But okay, so here we are in our generic mode, and you can see now it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, so we want O2 sensor 1 voltage, okay, O2 sensor 2 voltage. Didn't we have a lean on the rear? Let's get our rear O2 sensors. Maybe they fried their catalytic converter. Here's bank 2 sensor 1. Bank 2 sensor 2. You're probably wondering why these O2 sensors are reading well over a volt. I think that's going to change when we start the car. Let's get our long and short-term fuel trim. Relative throttle position, I guess we can go ahead and pull that. I like that where it's at. All right, there's our long-term 1. Long-term 2. Wow, super rich. All right, we can have 2 more on here. We're going to do short-term 2 and short-term 1. There we go. So we've got bank 1 fuel trim data here, bank 2 fuel trim data here. Okay, let's see if this car will start up again. All right, starts right up. Okay, and we can see that our bank 2 sensor 1 and 2 are pegged. Absolutely pegged. And we can see we are absolutely pegged. Wait, what did I do here? Why do I have 2 bank 2? So did we just lose communication here? Yeah, dang it, yes we did. We just lost communication. Will it come back? Let's see, why do I have 2 bank 2 sensor 1s on here? Okay, so bank 2 sensor 2, output voltage. I think this was supposed to be RPM. All right, well, lost communication. This is one of the frustrations with AutoIngenuity. It was fun while it lasted. So what I think I'm going to do is we're going to back out of this. We're going to connect up another scan tool. And we're going to check these O2 sensors. All right, I love you guys at AutoIngenuity, but Bill, if you're still there and you're watching, this is a reason why I just don't really use it as much anymore. That keeps happening, and my viewers know it. You guys gotta get in there and be competitive, man. And I'll help you if you want. But we got to work on that. All right, so what we've got here, as you noticed, as with Chrysler, is a lot of the Jeeps will have the inline 6. We've actually seen that before on several videos. This car is going to have, oh yay, yay indeed. So we see 2, 4, and 6 are not only on bank 2, but they are also in the front of the engine from the bumper, which means that they should be accessible and not under the intake manifold. That would be amazing. Let's take a look. All right, let's see here. And, oh man, okay, I think this is not good news here. No, it is not. So unfortunately on this design, all the spark plugs are located underneath the intake manifold. So this changes our direction a bit. I thought that we were going to have easy access to the spark plugs and we could look and see, because they changed the valve cover gasket, allegedly, because I'm a little skeptical about that, because it doesn't look like this has been disturbed or anything to me, but whatever. The reason that sucks is because one of the things I was thinking, maybe some oil leaking onto the spark plugs from the valve cover, and just wanted to see that. But we cannot easily remove spark plugs here. So we are going to instead chase down this. This will be the O2 sensor, which has been replaced for sure. That clearly is new. And we will start with that and see if hopefully our problem is with this O2 sensor. Or was it an air fuel sensor? See, I already forgot. because we lost the communication there, and I got a little distracted and I didn't see what the voltages were showing on that to see if we've got an air, fuel, or oxygen sensor. One possibility could be if they replaced this with a oxygen sensor, but it needs an air fuel sensor. I have definitely seen, as a matter of fact, we have a video of it. We have an old video of a car that uses an air fuel sensor, and the previous shop put in an oxygen sensor by accident. And the connectors are interchangeable a lot of times on that. Another little clue here is we've got this bracket right here. So there's a bracket right here. We see there's a little plastic tab that fits into the bracket, and they just had this resting here like that. And this is really bad because the wiring is resting on the edge of the metal bracket, and as vibrations and things happen over a long period of time, that can wear through your sensor wiring here. It doesn't look like that has happened. Not even on the plastic wire loom here, but actually on the wire itself. And if that eats through, you can short out to ground there. The issue is that this plastic tab that fits in here won't reach, which is making me a little suspicious about the oxygen sensor, and that it's clearly not the correct one for this vehicle. At least as far as the pigtail length. Maybe this is the bank 2 sensor, which would be shorter possibly, and this is all they had. That would be fine, it'll still work, but it is just a red flag here, and I'm really hoping this turns to be an O2 sensor issue so I don't have to take off an intake manifold. All right, so my plan is we want to see, can we get this O2 sensor to react to anything? So we need to get a good communication here, so I think we're going to connect up with Autel here. Let me go ahead and get set up and we'll see if we can test this O2 sensor. All right, we're going to go to Chrysler here. Wonder if there's a place we want to cause a vacuum leak. We want to cause a vacuum leak because I want to see, can we make this O2 sensor go lean? This is usually the easiest place to go, so we're going to loosen that up. That'll be our source for a vacuum leak. If we get a vacuum leak, we should easily be able to make that O2 sensor respond. And if it does not, then we are going to need to check what the issue is with that. All right, and this engine is running like absolute crap, but we can see our bank 1 sensor 102 volts is oscillating normally between like 0.1 and 0.9. That means we want bank 1 sensor 2, which is pegged at 0.8, which is good. That's good news for that catalytic converter. Not really worried about that now. We want bank 2 sensor 102 volts, which is reading 2.4. So we definitely have an issue, and I'm guessing that's not going to be with the O2 sensor. Let's see what bank 2 sensor 2 reads. And it's pegged at dead 0 volts. Could this be, that's interesting that that's pegged at 0 volts. This could be a bank 2 sensor 2 failure because, well, what's happening, I think, is that we're subtracting so much fuel from bank 2 that it may be that that sensor is legitimately pegged lean like that. That could be. Okay, so let's graph those. And we need to see if we can bring our green line, which is pegged way up at the top, down by making this engine lean. So what I'm going to do is disconnect that brake hose. Now this is going to make both our O2 sensors go lean. We see it absolutely leans out bank 1, and we see it's trying to adjust. That had zero effect whatsoever at all on bank 2. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to plug this hose back in. Now that we're really lean, our fuel trims should be super lean. We're going to, and I didn't bring up fuel trim here. That actually would be useful to do. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Can't find your data. You've got to remember that enhanced mode is not the end-all be-all here. All right, so we're going to go to OBD here. That'll bring us in generic mode. On this particular car, that's the only way we're going to be able to get fuel trims. Do want to see that as well. Not necessary, but it just makes it easier to verify our data here. Right now, I still have the car with the vacuum brake booster hose slightly disconnected to create what should be a severe lean condition. All right, we see our long-term fuel trim bank 2 still pegged because that O2 sensor hasn't moved. And it looks like we're losing some signal here for whatever reason. Okay, so let's get short-term 1, long-term 1. This should be at 25% on bank 1. Why is that not at 25%? I can understand the short term being around 0 because it may have adjusted for this. The engine's running like crap, so we don't have a lot of vacuum, so it's not drawing in as much. But that long term should be pegged lean. Okay, there's our short terms there. We need our O2 sensors. Okay, here's our O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 1. O2 sensor 1, 2, that is still looking good. O2 sensor bank 2 showing 1.27 volts right now. And our bank 2 sensor 2 showing full lean, 0 volts. O2 sensor 1, O2 sensor 2, clearly an issue there. I don't like our bank 2 sensor 2. I need to add one more in here. I need to add our bank 1 sensor 2 as well, don't I? Because we want to see that there's bank 1 sensor 2. We want to see if we get changes in that as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is this thing should be, oh, it just died. All right, hang on. Okay, this thing should be running so much leaner than what it's showing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in that vacuum hose. This should make it go super rich. We see it does. Not super rich though. That should be, yeah, I do not like how either of these O2 sensors is reacting here. Okay, this is really bugging me that none of these sensors are behaving. I'm going to go ahead and unplug that brake booster hose. Unplugging a brake booster hose should be a massive, massive, massive vacuum leak. We should see our short-term fuel trim go way positive here. It really doesn't. We see this has no effect. Where's our bank 2 sensor 1? Right there. Has no effect on that sensor. Okay, now I'm going to plug in the hose. This should cause things to go way rich. Killed the engine. Okay, we should be going way rich now. We see again, bank 2 sensor 1, no effect whatsoever at all. We see we are going rich here, but not dramatically. All right, try something else. And we're going to feed propane right into the hose. Okay, feeding propane right into the hose. That should cause us to go way rich. Oops, the hose came out. Hang on, hang on. All right, this should cause us to go way, way rich. We see we go way rich on bank 1. We see our bank 1 sensor voltage still. And we see our sensor voltage adjusted to that already. Take out the propane. We should be going way, way, way lean here right now. We really aren't. All right, it's a little hard to follow with all these numbers, I admit, so we're going to, let's just graph bank 1, sensor 1, and bank 2, sensor 1, and let's graph those. Okay, we've got normal oscillation on bank 1 in blue, nothing in green, way up at the top. We're going to go ahead and make this a rich condition, adding the propane right in there. We go way rich on that O2 sensor for a brief period of time, and then it seems to very quickly be able to adjust. No impact whatsoever on sensor 2, none. It is stuck rich. All right, I'm just going to unplug sensor 2. Unplug sensor 2, it doesn't change the voltage at all. That sensor is either completely dead or there is a wiring problem here. Now, what should my bias voltage be on there? I'm not totally sure. I would like to disconnect bank 1 oxygen sensor and see what the bias voltage looks like. So I think what I want to do is I want to unplug that sensor for bank 1 and see what it shows as bias voltage, and that could give me a clue on whether we've got a wiring problem or whether we've had 2 incorrect O2 sensors put in this car.